evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the program. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking about a very special movie. Not only is this the oldest film that I've ever covered in this series, it is also a national, nay, international treasure. Now, a lot of people have called this film nothing more than 1930s anti-cannabis propaganda. But I'm going to try and play devil's advocate the best I can here. Maybe there's an important message in this movie. Maybe it was right all along. It's Reefer Madness, a movie about the very real dangers associated with marijuana. Or as this movie calls it, marijuana. Now, I'm a big fan of this movie because the original black and white version is in the public domain. Yes, public domain. The two greatest words that a content creator can hear, other than monetization approved. Now, as I said, the original version of this movie is in black and white, but there is a colorized version. And I think that's the version I'm going to go with here because it's just a tad more fun. However, I'm going to keep the classic kind of aesthetic that I used in the Plan 9 video that people seem to like. And also because I rarely get to wear a suit. Honestly, I never have to wear it. The only time I get to wear a suit is at weddings and funerals. I've had this suit for a few years, and this is the second time I've worn it. So the movie starts with this very, very long warning about the dangers of marijuana. It says right here, the first effect is sudden, violent, uncontrollable laughter, dangerous hallucinations, space expands, time slows down. There's lots of other stuff. The loss of all power to resist physical emotions. And then, of course, shocking acts of violence ending often in incurable insanity. Now you may be saying, Mark, this is ridiculous. This is nothing but lies. I've never had any of this happen to me. Well, maybe you're right. But maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're just one of the lucky ones, along with everyone else that you know. And here's another thing you didn't think of. Maybe the effects of marijuana were more extreme in the 1930s. Maybe it was more potent. Now you're probably saying, no, weed is more potent now than it's ever been. Well, you've got some nerve. How do you know? Were you smoking weed back in the 1930s? No. Because guess what? Everyone who was is now dead. Coincidence? I rest my case. By the way, can I just say how beautiful I think this typeface is? It's really satisfying to look at. I mean, look at how marijuana is written here. Isn't that nice? And check out the B. That is the best looking B I've ever seen in my life. Even the Y on yours, it's just so oddly satisfying. So here's where it all starts. A meeting of the School Parents Association. And what's the meeting about? Well, it really doesn't say exactly. It just says, the subject is tell your children. Well, it turns out this presentation is all about drugs and how there's a bunch of drugs being smuggled into the country.
Out of the traffic in these drugs, a lawlessness that we can scarcely estimate has grown and is now flourishing. It exists in almost every city and hamlet in the country. It might be interesting and important for you to know some of the methods used in bringing these drugs into the country, and the work of the forces of law and order.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, can you please stop pretending to talk? It's very distracting. I'm trying to get through this meeting so that I can get back home and continue the renovations on my house with new space-aged materials, such as lead paint and asbestos. Have any of you ever smelled asbestos before? It smells like freedom. Now we get to see all of the ways that people smuggle drugs into the country. In the heels of their shoes, books, watches. And look at this guy. Why is he so shaky? Well, if you were around all these drugs all the time, wouldn't you get a little curious? Some of these drugs, I'm not even sure what they are. This just looks like a giant stack of marshmallows. And who knows, maybe they actually are. Maybe marshmallows were outlawed back then. Part of the great Mallow Prohibition of 1932. Here's where they take all the drugs and throw them into a furnace together, because I'm sure those fumes are safe to inhale. And look at how nicely packaged these drugs are. Perfect rectangles. Which makes perfect sense. I mean, back then, you hear it all the time. People just cared more. You know, they took a lot more pride in their work. even if their work was smuggling narcotics. See, that's one of the problems in our society today, folks. Drug dealers have forgotten the importance of presentation. You know, you buy some drugs now, how does your dealer give it to you? In a bag? If Steve Jobs decided to sell drugs instead of computers, this is what they would have looked like. So here they are, May and Jack. They might appear to be regular people, but in reality they're doing the devil's work. Demons in human skin, who lure unsuspecting victims over to their apartment and get them hooked on the reefer so that they become customers for life. The tragic thing is, once you become an addict of marijuana, that life is going to be pretty short. Just a fact. And now you're probably thinking, Mark, that's ridiculous. How can weed be deadly? Well, I'm glad you asked. Does that look like good bud to you? No, it looks like crap. Because who knows what's in that? It's probably cut with something that had, I don't know, radiation in it. Like a lot of stuff in the 20s. Everything had lead in it or was to a degree radioactive. I bet, if there were astronauts back then, they could probably spot every single house in the suburbs from space because it would just be glowing. So Jack's friend Ralph introduces him to some teenagers he knows and asks them to go with them and have some laughs. And they're like, sorry, we gotta go play tennis. But Jimmy just can't resist the idea of going off with these two strange men. I mean, can you blame them? They promised laughter. It's the 1930s. They were just coming off the Great Depression. Laughs were rare back then. So they go to this place that is just rockin'.
Why, don't you know him? That's Hot Fingers Friday.
Boy, he really swings out hot with him. That's a jive. You want to dance?
Do it.
But little did they know, they were dancing to the music of a madman, a marijuana addict. Look at him sneaking off. He's just gotta have more. He can't stop. And you can tell it's evil too because the smoke is green. Just like all evil things. The Grinch, Oscar the Grouch, Kale. Here's kind of an odd scene. Bill takes Mary back to her house and her mom brings them hot chocolate. Then Bill starts reciting Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo.
My dear.
Hey, you kids doing swell? Do you need anything? Coffee? Unfiltered cigarettes? Want to come chew on some asbestos? Here we see how great of a guy Bill is. Even after his brother rats him out for hanging out with Mary and starts taunting him.
He was not. I saw him out walking with his girl. Bill's got a girl. Got a girlfriend.
Mom, make him cut it out.
Junior. Well, Bill has got a girl. Well, he has got a girlfriend and her name is Mary.
Yeah, I'll shut you up.
Bill, Junior, put that carrying on.
Bill still agrees to fix his model airplane, which is really nice because I wouldn't fix anything for that snitch-ass bitch.
Well, I wasn't going any place in particular. Well, then, how about driving me over to the show's place with me? I'll buy you soda. I never drink that stuff. Well, gee, I'll buy you something else. Okay, you're on the hook for one root beer. Well.
I like how he scoffs at the idea of drinking soda, but then gets a chubby at the idea of a free root beer. See, Bill is super straight edge. No booze, no drugs, no soda, only hot chocolate and root beer. This guy must have been an animal in college. So Blanche convinces him to come over to Jack's house. Little does he know he's about to enter a world of sin and debauchery the likes of which he's never seen. I mean, just look at this place. These kids are obviously possessed by some kind of evil spirits.
Come on, Bill, don't stand there. Hillbilly.
Okay, somebody snuck that in there. Did you see it? It's 2 frames. One says 4. The next says 20. That was actually put in by Legend Films, who did the colorized version of the movie. So Jack's gotta go pick up some more weed, and Jimmy agrees to drive him, which leaves Bill all alone with these maniacs. Little does he know, life as he knows it will never be the same. It's about to end, as he knows it. In case the accounting machine didn't give it away, this is Jack's boss and supplier of illegal drugs. See, this is what drug dealers looked like back then. They had a taste for the finer things. That accounting machine probably cost a small fortune. I'm serious, they didn't have calculators back then. But here's where things start to get real. Jack gives Jimmy a marijuana cigarette, and now Jimmy has completely lost his mind, driving all over the place, and then, oh God, no! It looks like Jimmy has just taken his first life as a marijuana addict. Actually, it turns out that the guy didn't die, but it would be more dramatic if we pretend that he did. So Dr. Carroll goes to the FBI and is like, hey, they're giving this drug to kids. It's gonna kill everybody. And the FBI is like, dude, do you know how many marijuana cases there are? I mean, look at this whole file cabinet is full. I mean, that is a ton of paper. What are they supposed to do? Buy another file cabinet and just fill that one too? Anyways, Dr. Carroll goes back to school and is like, hey, Bill, I know you're on drugs somehow. Why don't you let me help you? But Bill is a reefer man now. He'll never admit to his addiction. So Bill goes back to Jack's weed house, and this is where things get really crazy. It looks like Bill's gonna start indulging in something 1,000,000 times worse than drugs. Coitus. That's right. Sexual relations. Tapping that ass. Laying the pipe. Clapping cheeks. I'm talking about intercourse. I mean, look at him. He's an animal. Just listen to that maniacal laugh. Meanwhile, Jimmy just can't stop playing the piano. It's the weed, I tells ya. At any time now, this could turn into a room full of murderous psychopaths. So Mary goes to look for Bill when she ends up at the drug house, and oh my God, she's smoking the weed now too. And the pink stuff, dear God, not the pink stuff. It's enough to turn Ralph into a rapist suddenly. It's a good thing Bill is there to help her. Folks, what you're about to see may be shocking, but it's the truth. And I want you to think about it every time you're tempted to indulge in the weed. Jack knocks out Bill with the butt of his gun, but at some point the gun goes off. And probably because there was so much weed smoke in the room, it caused the bullet to bounce off the ground into the air and back down again, killing Mary. So Jack convinces Bill that he was the one who killed Mary. And after a lengthy trial, the jury deliberates, and the foreman starts hallucinating, seeing a noose. And he's like, yeah, we gotta make an example out of this kid, so they find him guilty. Meanwhile, Ralph feels bad because he knows it wasn't Bill's fault. But that's okay. Just smoke some of this purple stuff and watch Blanche play the piano like a lunatic. Jack comes in and, well, what have we learned so far? When you're high, nothing good can happen. Nothing's chill. The only thing that can happen is death. So Ralph attacks Jack and beats him to death. And Blanche tells the cops the truth about everything. But again, there's no escaping the fate that you seal when you take that first puff. And Blanche jumps out of the window and kills herself. So much death. And all because of a little plant. The best part for me is really the end of this movie, because Dr. Carroll starts talking about how we must teach our kids the truth about marijuana, and only through education can we prevent this, which is just so ironic because this whole thing is one giant lie. Now, like I said, this movie was originally in black and white, but this is the colorized version. And I really like this version because of the use of colors, and especially with the smoke. It's actually really interesting to go back and watch this movie because, you know, during a time when everyone was pretty much drinking and smoking their faces off, they had to fabricate these lies about marijuana, which at the time I imagine had just such a low potency. But I wasn't alive back then, so who really knows? Seriously though, it was probably garbage. So I would recommend giving this one a watch if you're interested. And like I said, it's in the public domain, so it is free. But that's it for this one. As usual, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.